lament. The dead linger.
A skull-visored judge lowers a shock maul until its studs kiss the table beside a seal of dripped wax-red authority. The Voxcast rides the ventilation shafts through Hab-block tertius, flattening corridors into breathless compliance. Citizen Hadric Voss, Manufactorum 77 Alpha. Report to Precinct Fortress Adamant for tribunal processing. Imperial summons. Compliance is mandatory. The transmission cuts with metallic finality. No charge specified. No advocate permitted. The summons never lies. It only withholds. Hadric finds the docket pinned to his door lintel, his name in block capitals, then numerals, then a time window allowing neither shift nor sleep. At the bottom, failure to attend constitutes confession. He signs the receipt slate with hands that refuse steadiness, oil still embedded beneath his cuticles from the morning's labor quota. The procedure is communal and intimate. His wife unthreads shared ration chits from his belt because assets freeze on appearance. Neighbors practice veterans' mercy. They do not speak his name, as if silence could be armor. A child hums the Schola Catechism, innocence proves nothing, and is shushed without anger. Even consolation is rationed here. This is how Arbites trials function. Not as searches for truth, but as calibrated rituals whose outputs can be weighed, logged, and fed back into policy. Fear, when measured, becomes governance. The deterrence index for Block Tertius climbs toward sufficient as servo skulls drift through corridors like votive lamps. Candela angels, the precinct calls them. Their lenses gather dilation, pulse rate, the electric sweat of a populace learning again the limits of choice. On the docket's reverse, Hadric notices a black chevron, dread docket classification. Such cases travel with sealed chains of custody, yielding no public deterrence credit, yet devouring people all the same. Beside it, another marking, Zero White Protocol. Rumor calls it administrative release, mercy that proves the throne still sees. None bearing this designation have been seen since. The fortress waits, visible from every window, a geometry of inevitability. Its outer walls display chalk marks noting last week's sentences, 47 seconds per case, the litany of weighing maintaining throughput regardless of guilt. Execution scaffolds silhouette against industrial glow like prayer wheels, and somewhere beyond the hab stacks, intake hatches open to swallow the summoned. Night deepens. Distant screams thread the wind, lost in boiler thunder. Auspex recorders hum as they count heartbeats by corridor, tallying the precise physiology of institutional terror. The Candela angels widen their circuit, updating tomorrow's fear quotas. The summons is local. The law behind it spans a million worlds. Tomorrow, judges will cite edicts older than cities, traveling a size writs that bind hive and void dock alike. The template never changes, only the names. Copy the edicts that will Judge Hadric tomorrow were carved in Terran stone before his world learned imperial time. Behind every summons stands the Lex Imperialis, law that spans a million worlds because it must. Where conquest ends, governance begins, and the Adeptus Arbites emerged from the Great Crusade's need to bind species that had never shared sky or creed under one inexorable will. Their lineage traces to Terra's ancient judges, men who dispensed sentence from horseback across rad wastes. The Emperor's vision expanded this template, justice as extraterritorial force, untainted by planetary politics or local mercy. Arbites answer only to the throne, interpreting imperial law through precinct fortresses that rise like monuments to inevitability on every compliant world. The assize system transforms this doctrine into practice. Circuit tribunals audit compliance through traveling terror. Senior judges traversing sector-wide routes to measure local deterrence and correct deviation through ritualized fear. Their verdicts echo across void distances, establishing precedent that binds worlds they will never see. When deterrence fails at scale, they declare black assize, mass tribunals that reset entire populations through assembly line justice, their terror broadcast as cautionary scripture. This machinery requires measurement. Candela angels drift through corridors like Hadrix, gathering biometric data that feeds the deterrence algorithm. Pupil dilation, pulse rate, the electric sweat of institutional fear, all converted into policy through methods the administratum guards jealously. Too little terror breeds rebellion. Too much triggers economic collapse. The margin narrows with each audit cycle. Judges undergo conditioning to see themselves as instruments of divine will rather than arbiters of truth. Their training emphasizes procedure over investigation, throughput over accuracy. They learn to read dread yields like scripture, understanding that career advancement depends on quantified fear production rather than justice served. Rankings determine rations, replacements, promotion, sometimes survival itself on starved worlds. Yet shadows exist within this rigid framework. Precedent Mullius. 7 to 12 permits. Inquisitorial override for cases touching imperial security, creating dread dockets that consume defendants without generating deterrence credit. Such interventions create internal tensions where judges lose metrics through no fault of their own, necessary sacrifices to stability that audit ledgers cannot acknowledge. The system's genius lies not in eliminating crime, but in criminalizing existence itself. Every survival tactic becomes potential violation, every citizen, potential defendant. Local variations exist. Feudal worlds stage assizes as harvest festivals. Void stations broadcast trials to mess halls. But the template remains constant. Fear production through legal ritual. Compliance through visible consequence. Fortress precincts serve as both courthouse and cathedral, their architecture designed to break spirits before trials begin. Every angle calculated for psychological impact, every shadow measured for maximum dread yield. The buildings themselves become weapons in the war against human will. Tomorrow, Hadric will walk corridors designed by this doctrine, their geometry teaching submission before any judge speaks. The Candela angels update their indices. The quotas adjust. The doors wait like jaws, ready to demonstrate how inevitability is built from stone and terror. Rationed like ammunition in humanity's longest siege, the precinct fortress teaches doctrine without syllables. Fortress Adamant rises 60 meters above the industrial sprawl, its duracrete walls studded with execution scaffolds that display the previous week's sentences like prayer wheels against the smog. Bodies hang until replacement, their decay offering lessons no catechism can match. The approach forces single-file ascent beneath firing slits, footsteps falling into funeral pace because the incline insists. Vox psalms wash the queue in tireless drone. Obedience is safety, confession is cure, until thought adopts institutional rhythm. Entry funnels the summoned through intake stations where scribe clerks strip names of context, assigning color codes with mechanical precision. Gray for summary judgment, rust for labor requisition, black chevrons for sealed custody. Triage operates on sight lines and biometric scans, reducing human complexity to processing categories before defendants speak. Between intake and bench, confession alcoves recess like chapels, their oath collars hanging ready on rails, neural interfaces gleaming with maintenance oil. The processing pipeline flows with calculated efficiency. Voluntary confession chambers offer reduced sentences for cooperation, though cooperation means implicating associates in cascading arrests. The machinery feeds itself through human testimony, each broken voice generating new dockets, new quotas, new fear metrics for the algorithm to digest. Overhead, Candela angels drift on whispering repulsors, their servo skull frames mounting lenses that map terror in real time. Pupil dilation, skin conductance, vocal stress patterns, all logged into the deterrence algorithm that adjusts processing speed to maintain optimal dread yield. When indices drop, throughput accelerates. When they spike dangerously high, brief respites prevent psychological shutdown that would waste deterrence credit. The bench chamber exemplifies this calculated cruelty. 3 judges sit elevated behind carved aquilas, their skull visors reflecting light in patterns that trigger primal submission. Defendants stand in marked circles where acoustic design amplifies confessions while dampening mercy. The litany of weighing maintains its 47-second cadence per minor sentence, timing enforced by chronometer skulls that chime when delays threaten quotas. Verdicts convert instantly into transport logistics. Sentences become orders, chains become handwriting, every link spelling custody. Servo scribes emboss tablets that ride conveyor belts to loading cages where vehicles idle with doors already open. The human being transforms into resource allocation before hearts stop beating. Along one wall stands a door painted bone white, unmarked, save a lumen stamp reading 0 white. Guards ignore it by training. When it opens, it does so quietly, and the corridor seems to forget the person who passes through. Administrative release, the files claim, though none have returned to collect belongings or embrace families. Outside the kill line, families gather like pilgrims, faces turned toward sounds that leak over stone, vox anthems, boot clack, occasional screams that could belong to strangers. They study exhaust plumes for omens, marking chalk tallies for each name called. The architecture works before any judge speaks, crushing will beneath tonnage of imperial inevitability. The queue writes its own theology against fortress stones, where small lives expand into large crimes through legal alchemy. Mira Keth, from Level Tertius, clutches empty hands. 2 nutrient bars stolen during outage week become resource misallocation on her docket, carrying penalties identical to sabotage. Her fingers bear inked ration litanies, numerals added and crossed through over months of scarcity. She murmurs calculations still, as if mathematics might produce mercy this time. Guild factor. Jorik miscounted yield reports by 3%, hoping to correct shortfalls in the next cycle. His diligence transforms into falsification of imperial ledger once processed through legal machinery. The system tolerates no good intentions that deviate from recorded fact. He becomes a cog that tried to oil itself without permission. When the oath caller touches his neck, he signs confessions drafted before arrival, his signature becoming the hinge on which subordinate indictments will swing. Voidsman Korvac bears meteor glass charms blessed by his grandmother before first warp jumps. The ecclesiarchy permits such talismans, but local interpretation varies by precinct need. Today they constitute unsanctioned devotional practices because labor conscription quotas fill slowly. His faith becomes felony through administrative convenience, personal comfort reframed as contamination by Xenos taint. Catechist Helm delivered approved homilies for 7 years until yesterday's sermon drifted 11 seconds from sanctioned text. Autoscribes monitor every syllable for doctrinal purity. His congregation reported nothing, but surveillance requires no witnesses when machinery provides testimony. Even devotion, imperfectly aligned with ministorum templates, threatens order. These violations map directly to survival tactics within imperial scarcity. Theft emerges from rationing failures. Prayer deviates when hope requires personal language, reporting errors. Multiply when fear disrupts concentration. The system criminalizes adaptation itself, ensuring perpetual defendant supply for processing quotas. Collective liability expands this harvest exponentially. When Block Septimus falls short of tithe obligations, every resident receives mandatory summons. Guilt becomes hereditary through shared addresses, spreading like contagion through family units. Children learn early that proximity equals complicity in the throne's arithmetic. Between cases, desperate rituals emerge. Defendants ink sigils beneath sleeves, whisper shared ration litanies learned in childhood, prayers asking for swift judgment rather than justice. Some rehearse confession speeches, practicing guilt with theatrical precision because cooperation sometimes reduces sentences from death to decades. Silence warrants appear beside certain names, orders that erase not only verdicts but identities themselves. These serve stability by removing inconvenient truths from public record, though subjects vanish more completely than execution provides. Administrative mercy leaves no forwarding address. A child witness sits in the gallery, reciting the catechism of guilt by rote. Innocence proves nothing. Guilt is inevitable. Her voice carries no emotion, already learning that survival requires accepting institutional logic over personal truth. The confession alcoves open nearby, their oath collars gleaming with maintenance oil, ready to ask questions the law prefers answered. The oath collars hang ready as the child's catechism fades into institutional silence. Confession alcoves open like chapels, their neural interfaces blessed by tech priests who understand sacrament through circuitry. Here, interrogation becomes ritual, breaking resistance to serve the emperor's will through measured application of institutional faith. Confessor-interrogator Vex enters with liturgical precision, shockmaul at his belt, reliquary of broken quills sanctifying his purpose. The litany of necessary cruelty guides his work. Through agony, clarity. Through breaking, truth. Through submission, salvation. He genuinely believes torture purifies, that confession surgically removes the cancer of deception from imperial subjects. Sleep deprivation begins Miraketh's ritual. 72 hours without rest dissolves boundaries between truth and hallucination, making confession inevitable rather than chosen. The stolen nutrient bars expand under systematic pressure into networks of complicity. Neighbors who shared rations, children who witnessed theft, supervisors who ignored shortfalls. Each name spawns new arrest warrants, the machine feeding itself through human testimony. Guild factor. Jorik resists with professional dignity until pharmaceutical coercion arrives. Pax Chem Mist floods neural pathways with chemical honesty, blurring certainty into cooperation. He signs prepared confessions naming suppliers he never met, his breakdown measured by dermal sensors that taste salt and fear. The content matters less than capitulation. Only surrender counts for bureaucratic purposes. Voidsman Korvac holds longest, kissing meteor glass charms while reciting void prayers. Sensory manipulation follows. Strobe patterns triggering epileptic compliance. Subsonic frequencies inducing nausea. Temperature shifts preventing adaptation. When sleep deprivation folds time into damp cloth, he surrenders the charms to spare his crew. The cogitator registers his collapse as bright spike, another data point for the algorithm. Catechist Helm breaks after 18 hours, theological training providing no defense against techniques designed by the ecclesiarchy itself. His sermon variations implicate entire parishes in doctrinal deviation, creating audit requirements that will occupy ministorum investigators for months. Personal destruction becomes foundation for expanded operations. Recording methods capture everything with mechanical precision. Candela angels drift overhead, their lenses harvesting pupil dilation and vocal stress patterns. Audio scryers preserve tremor analysis. Bio-auspex monitors autonomic responses, validating confession authenticity. This data feeds directly into the deterrence algorithm, each broken spirit contributing statistical input that optimizes fear production across sectors. Confession serves functions beyond establishing guilt. It generates intelligence on associates and networks, creates legal documentation for cascading arrests, provides metrics for institutional efficiency. Every tear, every tremor of a hand, signing forced admission, becomes quantifiable output. Dread yield measured against precinct performance standards. Between sessions, Vex reviews algorithm feedback, determining which techniques produce optimal confession rates, how pharmaceutical dosages correlate with useful intelligence yield, when physical coercion becomes counterproductive waste. Science serves sacrament through calibrated cruelty, each scream measured for maximum institutional benefit. The broken emerge hollow-eyed and compliant, their resistance surgically removed through systematic application of faith. They carry confessions implicating dozens, personal agony transformed into systematic intelligence that will stalk tomorrow's dockets. Servo-scribes emboss transport orders while the machinery prepares for bench appearances, where verdicts await conversion into quotas that measure more than justice. They measure the precise economics of institutional terror. The transport orders emerge from servo-scribes as broken confessions convert into docket entries, each signature becoming foundation for bureaucratic machinery that processes 3,000 cases monthly. Fortress Adamant manages simultaneous trials through classification systems reducing human complexity to color-coded categories. Gray for summary execution, rust for labor conscription, black chevrons for sealed custody, and the rare 0 white. Administrative release that promises mercy none have witnessed. Triage clerks slot admissions into punishment codex with factory precision, their fingers dancing over rune keys that translate misery into calendar entries. The litany of weighing maintains 47 seconds per minor sentence, timing enforced by chronometer skulls that chime when delays threaten throughput quotas. Every pause costs deterrence, every delay risks audit. Above clerk pools, the sentencing algorithm glows in pale numerics, an administratum gift, calculating recommended verdict distributions. Its inputs arrive through secure channels, tithe shortfalls by district, unrest telemetry from HAB corridors, labor requisitions from Astra Militarum levy offices, even pilgrimage calendars affecting crowd density. It outputs precise recommendations where spectacle purchases greatest compliance per death, graphing terror's elasticity curve with mathematical precision. Seasonal patterns govern trial frequency like industrial production cycles. Harvest festivals trigger purge sweeps aligned with tithe collection. Demographic targeting serves economic needs rather than criminal activity. When agri-worlds require field hands, verdicts shift toward labor conscription. Resource scarcity increases execution rates, reducing mouths while providing cautionary theater. Death becomes supply chain management disguised as justice. Hadric Voss bears rust-colored classification before trial begins. His technical skills predetermined his fate regardless of guilt. The confession engine merely provides legal documentation for economic necessity. Labor shortages drive conscription verdicts with mechanical precision. When Manufacturum 77 Alpha reports 20% attrition, tribunal outcomes adjust automatically. Quota fulfillment determines precinct survival through resource allocation. Fortresses ranking highest in dread yield per capita receive priority supplies, replacement equipment, favorable audit schedules. Judges browse ledgers like quartermasters, calibrating deterrence to breaking points while monitoring performance metrics that determine rations, ammunition allotments, even promotion tracks. Dread dockets create internal tensions within efficient machinery. Cases sealed under precedent malleus 7 to 12 deny judges deterrence credit, creating performance gaps audit ledgers cannot acknowledge. Senior Judge Korath faces career termination because classified custody transfers rob him of fear metrics, necessary sacrifices to imperial security that destroy individual advancement through competing priorities. The algorithm updates continuously through Candela Angel surveillance, measuring spectator fear. Response to optimized sentence distribution. Too many executions create dangerous despair. Too few permit rebellion. The margin narrows with each cycle as populations adapt to institutional pressure, requiring constant recalibration of terror production. By week's end, the algorithm flags Gethsemane Spire's agri-feed tithe at -7.2%, unrest rising in lower levels. Deterrence indices trend soft despite steady throughput. It recommends escalation, witness casters, curfew psalms, and, if numbers fail recovery by third watch, a black assize. A dread docket labeled Sigma rides the same data stream, sealed and heavy enough to bend every figure touching it. The machinery prepares for mass processing. The algorithm's crimson warning cascades through Fortress Adamant as Gethsemane Spire's agri-feed tithe registers 7.2% below Imperial quota. Crop blight devours entire nutrient sectors while food riots simmer in level Primus, citizens breaking curfew to raid distribution centers. The deterrence index hovers dangerously low, compliance metrics trending toward rebellion thresholds that demand immediate correction. Administratum Sector Command transmits emergency directive through encrypted Vox channels. Assize Protocol 7, immediate implementation. Senior Judge Korath receives sealed orders bearing the Aquila Imperialis, his career salvation dependent on resetting population compliance through systematic terror. The fortress shifts into surge operations as witness casters rise from courtyard stones like iron lilies, their broadcast arrays preparing to carry trials hive-wide. Curfew. Psalm 13 echoes through ventilation shafts, its liturgical cadence marking transition from standard processing to mass operations. Citizens recognize the anthem from childhood nightmares. When the psalm sounds, entire districts empty into processing queues. Block-level informants receive activation codes through dead-drop networks, their accumulated intelligence converting neighbors' names into arrest warrants. Survival, purchased with betrayal, feeds the machinery's hunger. Precinct logisticians mobilize with ritual efficiency. Black mules stage in fortress courtyards, their armored hulks ready for transport logistics. 37 defendants per load, processing time calculated to maintain throughput despite volume increases. Arrest lists compile from yield ledgers rather than crime reports, targeting supervisors whose sectors fell short, families whose consumption exceeded allocation, workers whose productivity declined during crisis. Hydric Voss receives transport scheduling, his rust-coded classification ensuring labor conscription regardless of proceedings. The confession engine merely provides legal documentation for economic necessity. When Manufactorum 77 Alpha reports 20% attrition, tribunal outcomes adjust automatically. His wife watches witness casters calibrate broadcast ranges, their transmission arrays reaching every hab block, where citizens might witness institutional power. The Sigma-sealed Dread Docket resurfaces, its encrypted contents protected from standard audit. Someone influential enough to bend algorithm recommendations rides within. Those classified files, a name whose public trial would destabilize more than tithe collection. Precedent. Mullius 7-12 hovers like shadow, ready to extract valuable defendants through side channels while masses feed the deterrence machine. Judge Korath studies performance metrics with desperate calculation. His dread yield statistics lag because classified transfers denied him deterrence credit, necessary sacrifices to imperial security that threaten personal survival. Tonight offers redemption through volume processing, but only if terror quotas spike sufficiently to satisfy audit requirements. Third Watch approaches with mechanical inevitability. Candela angels widen their orbits, scraping fear telemetry from skin as the index climbs fractionally. Not enough. If numbers fail recovery by dawn, the Black Assize will process 500 cases before sunrise. Assembly line justice designed to reset compliance through visible consequence. The fortress gates stand ready. The machinery of imperial terror prepares to demonstrate why missing quotas threatens more than starvation. Third Watch expires without recovery. The deterrence index flatlines at insufficient levels as Grey Dawn breaks over Gethsemane Spire. Judge Korath receives final authorization through encrypted Vox burst. Black Assize declared mass processing authorized, 500 cases minimum before sunset. The fortress exhales boiler steam as the machinery of Imperial terror prepares its greatest demonstration. Pre-dawn, preparation unfolds with ritual precision. Judges review quota distributions over recaf and stim tabs, their skull visors reflecting pale lumens, while executioners test shock mauls in courtyard shadows. Blue arcs crawl like tired lightning across charge coils. Tech adepts bless cogitators with scented oils, imprinting purity seals on ledgers still wet with ink. In the scriptorium, death certificates await completion in neat columns, blanks left for names not yet called. Witness casters rise on hydraulic spines above the courtyard, their transmission arrays preparing to carry justice into every hab block where citizens cannot escape the lesson. The first black mules arrive at dawn, disgorging defendants into processing queues that snake through fortress corridors like penitent processions. Hadric Voss stands among rust-coated conscripts, his technical skills having predetermined survival at slavery's price. 500 become lines, become numbers, become a procession measured in heartbeats and fear. Assembly line justice begins with chronometer precision. The bench chamber opens its throat and swallows the first wave. 3 judges sit elevated behind carved Aquilas, the litany of weighing, establishing its relentless 47-second cadence per minor sentence. Chronometer skulls chime like metronomes, timing that cannot bend for mercy or truth. Candela angels drift overhead like mechanical seraphim, their crimson lenses harvesting pupil dilation. From spectators, the deterrence index updates in real time on Korath's slate, climbing steadily as terror converts into quantifiable metrics. Bio-auspex monitors autonomic responses, dermal sensors taste salt and fear, audio scryers preserve every tremor for algorithm analysis. Case, Mira Keth, resource misallocation, confession recorded, verdict. Summary execution for public edification. The shock maul's discharge echoes through Vox speakers as her body joins others on transport pallets. Case, guild factor. Joric, falsification of ledger. Confession recorded. Verdict, labor conscription. 30 years hard service. A brand kisses his forehead with the Aquila. Case, voidsman Korvac. Unsanctioned devotional practices. Confession recorded. Verdict, penal legion service, immediate transport. His meteor glass charms crush beneath the judge's seal. Case, catechist helm, doctrinal deviation. Confession recorded. Verdict, labor conscription pending Ministorm review. Mid-morning brings the algorithm's calculated surprise. A woman bearing 0 white classification stands before the bench. Administrative release. Apparent mercy that causes spectators to gasp audibly. The deterrence index spikes as hope flickers through the crowd, their relief generating fear metrics more valuable than another execution. She walks toward the bone-white door with trembling steps, guards escorting her with unusual gentleness. The crowd makes a sound no law recognizes, hope reborn as terror. When the door seals, it does so soft as a whisper, and she vanishes into protocol pale host requisition. Administrative release means biological harvest, disguised as clemency, mercy revealed as another form of consumption. In the periphery, movement not meant for crowds. A heavily guarded figure bearing Sigma classifications moves through service passages toward an unmarked shuttle. No docket is read, no litany accompanies their transfer. Even here, procedure makes room for power. The dread docket prisoner disappears through precedent malleus override, their public trial too dangerous for Imperial stability. Korath's jaw tightens, another case denying him deterrence credit. Afternoon brings peak efficiency. Cases process at optimal rhythm, verdicts converting instantly into transport orders. Servo-scribes emboss tablets that ride conveyor belts to loading cages where black mules idle with engines running. Human beings transform into resource allocation before hearts stop beating. The air grows thick with metallic fear and copper scent of fresh blood. Evening approaches with the index climbing past threshold. 512 cases processed, quotas exceeded, compliance metrics trending toward acceptable ranges. In level Primus, riots falter as citizens retreat to hab blocks, their resistance surgically removed through systematic demonstration of Imperial inevitability. The Black Assize ends precisely on schedule, its terror broadcast complete. The machinery has worked, visibly, efficiently, terrifyingly. The algorithm updates with fresh data while bodies cool on transport pallets, preparing tomorrow's quotas from today's harvest of human fear. The ledgers reconcile while bodies cool on transport pallets. Administratum, adepts working through night cycle beneath green-shaded lumens. Their abachi clack through brutal arithmetic, deterrence up 31%. Tithe compliance projected to recover within acceptable parameters. Death toll measured as statistical success. 512 souls converted to metrics that matter more than names. The algorithm purrs with satisfaction, its hunger fed through systematic demonstration of Imperial inevitability. Yet anomalies surface in the cold light of data analysis. All 4 zero-white recipients have vanished from ration rolls within hours of door seal, their identities scrubbed from residential ledgers with surgical precision. No forwarding districts, no reclamation tickets, no notation in the psalter of exculpation for proper rights. Administrative release leaves no footprints. Mercy revealed as another form of harvest, hope weaponized against those who witnessed apparent clemency. Dread docket complications multiply through classified channels. The Sigma-sealed transfer generated no deterrence credit, despite consuming valuable processing time. Its passage through precedent Malleus 7 to 12, leaving blank spaces in performance metrics. Judge Korath's relief curdles as he reviews updated rankings. His overall yield climbed dramatically, yet specific anomalies deny him credit where career survival depends on precise accounting. Draft silence. Warrants circulate through secure channels, targeting records that might destabilize recovery efforts. In hab blocks throughout Gethsemane Spire, survivors adapt with practiced desperation. Fresh penance bands wrap arms like ritual bandages, their scarification marking compliance through visible submission. Families mark thresholds with ash sigils translating roughly to "we saw, don't take us," their terror converted to cooperation through architectural semiotics. Children learn new catechisms emphasizing guilt over innocence, their education adjusted to reflect recent demonstrations of institutional power. The fear quota system updates precinct rankings based on dread yield per processing hour, determining supply priority and career survival across sector commands. Fortress Adamant climbs toward excellence ratings while rival precincts face resource cuts, their judges struggling with inadequate deterrence production. Competition drives innovation in terror techniques, each facility seeking optimal fear extraction through systematic experimentation on human subjects. Economic projections stabilize as terror converts to compliance through measurable channels. Tithe collection resumes normal schedules. Food riots dissolve into sullen acceptance. Productivity indices trend toward acceptable ranges. Individual suffering transforms into systemic stability through bureaucratic alchemy that measures success in fear rather than justice. Inquisitorial custodianship hovers like Stormfront over post-processing analysis. Precedent Malleus 7 to 12 permits shadow operations beyond standard audit, creating parallel justice systems serving different masters. When institutional security conflicts with deterrence metrics, security wins through classified channels that deny judges their professional advancement. The system consumes its own servants when necessary, optimizing human resources through calculated sacrifice. The algorithm prepares tomorrow's quotas while questions multiply in Fortress shadows. Why does the Salter omit zero-white rubrics? And who audits the auditors when terror becomes currency? The machine resets itself for morning operations, its deepest mechanisms shrouded even from operators who feed its endless hunger. The questions multiply as dawn brings ecclesiarchal homilies to fortress chapels, where Cardinal Prosecutor Vaughn delivers morning catechism to assembled judges. Guilt is spiritual disease, confession the scalpel, sentence the cure. Auto-flagellation scrolls hang beside legal codex, their bloodied strips accepted as mitigating evidence when deterrence requires theater more than blood. The throne's justice becomes sacrament through theological interpretation that yokes law to faith with practiced precision. Yet contradictions emerge between competing imperial institutions. Ecclesiarchal canon prefers penance and redemption, souls saved through extended suffering rather than destroyed through efficient disposal. The Ministorum profits from prolonged penitence, labor gangs building cathedral spires, pilgrim tithes funding missionary work, reformed sinners providing testimony for conversion efforts. Arbites optimize for deterrence and disposal, their success measured in fear production rather than spiritual rehabilitation. When efficiency conflicts with redemption, efficiency wins through doctrinal flexibility. Junior preacher Matthias discovers the system's theological corruption in scriptorium shadows. His copy of the Psalter of Exculpation bears torn pages where zero-white rubrics should appear, sections excised by Mechanicus' decree to prevent loss of valuable assets. The sacred text becomes resource allocation document, its missing verses hiding procedures too profitable for public scrutiny. Faith serves quotas rather than souls when institutional needs demand doctrinal adaptation. Deeper investigation reveals protocol pale host, misfiled among hymnals, an oil-slick aquila, marking surgical diagrams disguised as pious language, transmutation to blessed servitude, the sanctity of useful flesh. The euphemisms cannot hide biological harvest masquerading as administrative mercy. He understands why the Psalter lacks prayers for zero-white release. Mercy had been repurposed into technological resource extraction. The administratum. Signals reach ecclesiarchal offices through encrypted channels, determining which sins merit public display and which require silence warrants. When deterrence needs spectacle, heresy trials broadcast with full ceremonial pageantry. When valuable subjects risk exposure, theological interpretation shifts toward private penance and administrative mercy. Doctrine bends to serve institutional needs rather than divine will. Autoflagellation becomes currency in this theological marketplace. Defendants bearing fresh scars receive reduced sentences, their self-inflicted suffering credited against formal punishment. The Ministorum provides pre-sanctified whips through fortress chapels, their blessed barbs ensuring proper spiritual efficacy. Pain purchases clemency through systematic commodification of religious devotion. Among the faithful, contradiction becomes coping mechanism. Families hang penance cords so inspectors see redeemable households. Mothers drill children to answer catechisms precisely yet not too brightly, for excessive hope can be misread as heresy. The populace internalizes fear as piety, praying for swift judgment rather than justice, seeking penance rather than innocence. The system's ultimate achievement lies in spiritual subjugation, transforming survival into the highest virtue and compliance into the only sacrament. If sacred doctrine serves quotas rather than souls, what remains of imperial truth beyond administrative convenience? The question of imperial truth finds answer in proctorial chambers where Judge Korath faces trial for insufficient dread yield, despite perfect adherence to Lex Imperialis. His skull visor reflects pale lumens as Senior Proctor Vex reviews performance metrics with mechanical precision. Deterrent statistics lag sector. Average by 4%. Career termination pending unless explanation satisfies audit requirements. The system devours its own servants when quotas trump justice. Evidence unfolds through classified ledgers bearing Mechanicus seals. Partial unsealing of Dread Docket 917 Sigma reveals its contents. Governor Malthius's nephew, implicated in agri-tithe skimming through shell corporations spanning 3 sectors. Public trial would destabilize planetary levy collection, triggering cascade failures across the subsector. Under Precedent Malleus 7-12, inquisitorial custody transferred the defendant to avoid scandal, denying Korath deterrence credit for political necessity disguised as legal procedure. The proctors proceed to evidence Korath could never cite. An administratum adept slides transfer protocol, pale host across the rail. Mechanicus requisitions for untainted biological stock, matching 0 white release schedules with mathematical precision. Column after column aligns case numbers with shipping manifests, transit destinations listed as sanctified manufactoria. The dates match perfectly. Administrative mercy converts directly into technological resource extraction. Hope, weaponized to harvest valuable specimens through systematic deception. Cross-reference analysis exposes systematic patterns across multiple precincts. Every 0 white release corresponds to pale host requisitions filed through Mechanicus channels, their timing synchronized to avoid audit detection. The woman who walked through the bone-white door during Gethsemane's Black Assize possessed rare neural architecture suitable for servitor conversion. Her apparent clemency merely efficient biological harvesting disguised as justice. Korath's defense crumbles against institutional logic, prioritizing stability over individual advancement. His perfect legal conduct becomes liability when classified operations require sacrificial metrics. The proctorial court operates with identical efficiency to standard tribunals, predetermined verdict serving systemic needs rather than personal justice. Judges face the same machinery they operate, discovering terror's reciprocal nature when institutional hunger demands their own consumption. The revelation crystallizes through brutal arithmetic. Fear is targeted at the loyal because the truly guilty never see trial. They become resources through parallel systems serving different masters. Public law manages populations. Private corridors manage profit and stability. The governor's nephew will serve the Mechanicus as servitor components, while his victims faced execution for missing quotas his theft created. Released with censure and reduced supply priority, Korath walks service corridors behind the bone-white door. A custodial hatch hangs ajar, revealing tech adepts chanting Binharik over recumbent figures stripped of identity bands, cranial ports prepared with antiseptic care. Ration chits lie tagged for reclamation. Mercies have destinations, and none lead home. The lesson is economical rather than moral. Justice must pay for itself through optimized human resource extraction. The ledgers balance because bodies move through calculated channels, some to spectacle, others to harvest, all serving quotas that measure efficiency rather than truth. Tomorrow's trials will reflect this arithmetic carved into institutional memory. Copy the arithmetic carved into institutional memory follows Korath through service corridors, where the lesson crystallizes into policy. Arbites trials function as economic engines driving imperial productivity through systematic conversion of human terror into measurable revenue streams. Fear must balance books, and every verdict serves dual purpose as justice and supply chain management, optimized for maximum extraction efficiency. Financial incentives permeate every aspect with mechanical precision. Execution fees levied against families fund fortress operations through disposal of imperial assets charges. Labor conscript sales to industrial cartels generate quarterly revenue. Defendants valued by skill set and physical endurance in markets where guild factors bid for shifts at discount rates. Protocol. Pale host invoices arrive disguised as devotional pamphlets, but the numbers reveal brutal truth. Neural purity premiums, myomer density bonuses, liver-grade multipliers for alchemical refineries. Even crematory scrip becomes commodity. Ash mixed with binding agents for cathedral mortar sold on contract to Ministorum construction projects. Cross-planetary analysis reveals adaptive efficiency serving identical conversion principles. Feudal world assizes stage as harvest festivals where verdicts synchronize with seasonal labor demands and grain collection schedules. Void station tribunals broadcast to mess halls during shift changes, maximizing spectator fear while maintaining operational continuity. Agri-world justice operates through seed loan negotiations. Terror commodified as financial instrument where human cost balances against agricultural yield projections. The algorithm optimizes this supply-side economics through continuous market feedback. When mining operations require 20,000 hands, conscription verdicts surge automatically. When Forge worlds need servitor components, Zero White releases spike to meet biological material quotas. Justice becomes resource allocation, disguised as legal procedure, bodies converted to credits through institutional alchemy that measures success in profit margins rather than souls saved. Sector Command reviews annual metrics with professional satisfaction. Productivity up 17%. Compliance indices stabilized. Resource extraction optimized through systematic terror application. Regional innovations demonstrate competitive efficiency. Hive Tertius operates fortress precincts as economic hubs where trial outcomes feed directly into allocation networks. Mining World Caradox pioneered auction systems where industrial cartels bid for conscript labor during public trials. Defendants traded in real time while families believe they witness imperial justice. An Arbites mentor admits the system's core philosophy with clinical precision. We do not seek the true. We seek the optimal. This creed underpins every verdict, every sentence, every silent disappearance through bone-white doors. Optimality means maximizing fear to ensure compliance, minimizing waste through efficient disposal, repurposing all human material for the Imperium's endless war machine. Truth becomes liability when efficiency demands flexibility. The system achieves perfect self-sustaining equilibrium through calculated feedback loops. When unrest rises, trials intensify automatically. When labor shortages develop, sentences shift toward conscription. When populations exceed planetary capacity, death rates adjust upward. Every broken confession generates intelligence for expanded operations. Every execution provides biological materials. Every labor conscript fills industrial quotas through systematic optimization of human suffering. The Black Assize of Gethsemane Spire exemplifies this economics logic. Human lives invested to secure larger resource flows, horror experienced by populations becoming the primary product rather than side effect. The apparent irrationality of institutional cruelty masks perfect bureaucratic mathematics designed to balance ledgers with blood and fear, ensuring imperial survival through unimaginable human cost optimization. The Voxcast rides ventilation shafts through Hab Block Quintus with identical authority. Citizen Jenna Vex, Manufactorum 99 Beta. Report to Precinct Fortress Adamant for tribunal processing. Imperial summons. Compliance is mandatory. The transmission cuts with mechanical finality. No charge specified. No advocate permitted. The template never changes. Only the names. Another worker finds the docket pinned to her threshold, wax cooling hard as law, while neighbors practice veterans' mercy through calculated silence. 3 months have passed since the Black Assize reset Gethsemane Spire's compliance metrics. The system absorbed Hadric Voss's loss through statistical recalibration, human absence converted to operational efficiency through bureaucratic alchemy. New workers fill manufacturum shifts where he once labored, their quotas adjusted upward to compensate for missing productivity. The machine endures through systematic replacement, each void filled before cooling. The transformation reveals itself through institutional memory made flesh. Dread Docket, 917. Sigma resurfaces as resolved through administrative transfer. Names erased, deterrence credit finally awarded posthumously to Judge Korath through delayed accounting. The ledgers balance because bodies moved through calculated channels, political inconvenience resolved through temporal adjustment of bureaucratic mathematics. Even classified operations serve economic optimization through patient record-keeping. The child witness from Gethsemane's trials now appears in Schola Progenium files as candidate Lisa 41, temperament marked, compliant, numerate, placed on Arbites track after aptitude testing. She learns the litany of weighing as music and mathematics, memorizes Lex Imperialis excerpts, drills with shock maul until calluses form. In training galleries, Candela angels lower to her height while instructors speak gently. Fear is a gauge. Read it as you would a chronometer. The system perpetuates itself by recruiting those it traumatized, converting victims into operators through institutional conditioning. Each generation adapts to incrementally increased surveillance and control, normalizing what their parents would have found unthinkable. Families mark thresholds with ash sigils and penance cords, their terror converted to cooperation through architectural semiotics. Children learn catechisms emphasizing guilt over innocence, their education adjusted to reflect recent demonstrations of institutional power. Hope is tidied into absence through administrative procedure. The system achieves its ultimate triumph through transformation of individual tragedy into routine administrative procedure. Each broken confession becomes template for the next. Every execution refines techniques for maximum deterrence yield. All suffering converts to institutional memory that optimizes human resource extraction. The Fortress Adamant processes new arrivals with mechanical precision, its bone-white door waiting like patient predator. Protocol pale host requisitions, updated with current market demands. The machine endures not by eliminating crime, but by criminalizing existence itself, ensuring eternal justification for eternal processing. Tomorrow brings new summons, fresh dockets, identical procedures applied to different names. The algorithm updates its quotas while fortress gates stand ready, demonstrating the only creed that matters. Innocence proves nothing. Guilt is inevitable. Fear serves the emperor. The circle closes with procedural inevitability.